All right, and welcome back to round three of this challenge number 7. We have an interesting matchup coming up, but first of all, let's take a look at the what the metagame breakdown is for the tournament, and maybe gain some insight into maybe what people might be playing moving forward. Anyway, it's basically all Xenon all the time, right? There's some destruction in there, but that's Xenon with a slight splash. And
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of interesting. So with regards to what happens when it's like a very fresh format, is I feel like you're more likely to see more good stuff decks. Like a lot of people take advantage of the promos, some more of the obvious, more like cookie cutter sort of strategies. And we see that on full display here with Xenon, Destruction, Praxis, and Argenport as the most represented decks.
yeah, it's
But I
it's
feel
usually
like
either that or aggro, right?
right, and I feel like there is some. But I feel like even just next week's TNA or the one afterwards, I think we're gonna start to see some evolution because okay, fine, these are the objectively good cards, but what are the synergies or what are the key like holes that I can poke in that sort of strategy? And I'm excited to see those on display. So a good
Yeah.
example, even though uh the Xenon Destruction Praxis decks all have access to it, but I think a good example is like Evelina. So it's just like you can set up the game such that hey, I can always represent playing this charge unit from my hand and get a 5/5, which is a meaningful amount of material. You can kind of build your whole plan around that.
Now, notably, I think that most of the Xenon decks are not running Evelina, which is
I'm giving
an
away
interesting
my
decision.
attack. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I think that one thing is that the aggro decks that are going to be seen in this particular format, I think, are very um like either Stone Scar, but I think that Sill's nerf really puts a hamper on the Stone Scar strategy. Also, a lot of the Skycrag types of strategies are very based upon frenzy, and it's actually a little difficult at this time to figure out exactly how much frenzy versus how much how many payoffs you want to have, and those kinds of strategies. Like even the hardcore frenzy strategies that are based upon Skycrag Adept, for example, like they're a little hard to figure out right now in order to tune properly, compared to like the good stuff decks. I think, well, where the good stuff decks are including a lot of cards from the previous format as well, right?
Right.
So, uh, we'll see a little bit more of a variation, I think, by the next tournament, or maybe we won't. Maybe these are the maybe we've already figured it out, but
I have faith in the Eternal community, and if not, I'll just have to show them at the open.
yeah. Um, we're
All right,
gonna
nice. So we have a
just
Xenon mirror here. So we have fellow misplay member ThufirHawat playing a Xenon deck that's actually quite a bit different than a lot of other ones. Has access to Lurking Brute, Golden Horns, Security, just a lot of really good cards, but trying to attack the format in a very a lot more of a unique way, but just only playing good cards. And then dqdawgoo we saw earlier having this more Grumbo based deck.
yeah, the more average deck that I think we're seeing. Um, used to seeing from the current format. That is interesting. Lurking Brute. Um, not a card that I would think to run for sure. Um, it is definitely very very good if you're on the play. And can definitely um. Is there any way to trigger it other than it is itself a minotaur, right? So
Right. Yeah.
that's the key to this deck, right? Is that it's
Right.
running gift and as well as a minotaur package.
Right. So besides that, with the Golden Horn security, you can up your Minotaur account also to make it be able to trade or get in there a few more times.
And we see what being
Dino Nest. with Null Blade, so all that lines up. Null Blade is a pretty good call for this format because I feel like so many of these Xenon decks have been playing through the unknown, and being able to just blank that is really nice.
Interesting reprint for sure. I expect them to reprint Null Blade in this format.
Yeah, I might have to use up some Shift Stone.
Yes.
It was also before my
already
time.
having 4 of them is I even have a couple premium ones.
Oh wow, big spender over here.
Okay, so dqdawgoo of course goes to the mulligan because they were on 1 power. Actually, I think they had 2 power, but one of them was a inscribed credit, so it was kind of a not fantastic.
This one's really tough. What are your thoughts when
Yeah.
looking at this hand?
On
Like
the play, this is
have
kind of
open
an
deck list.
unfortunate hand. Yeah, they keep it. If you draw any shadow source, the sand is like pretty decent. You have the one drop and a 2 drop that's pretty good, and you even have the 1 drop 2 drop play of playing your Zito, right?
It's tough. Like when you know that there's a uniform distribution between 2, 3, and 4 power hands, the question is, would you trade 2 of your non-powers for a power in this hand? And I think the answer is yes. And when that answer is yes, I usually mulligan. And I hate mulligan,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's definitely a tough call. Like I can't fault one person one.
I found that I don't know. It's kind of difficult because like any number of things could have caused me to become a quote unquote better player, but I think that mulliganing less was something that like learning to play with the hands that you're given instead of trying to go for this idealized situation was kind of something that improved my gameplay a lot.
It's funny because everyone obviously has like different experiences and stuff. If you watch most of my camera matches, I probably say most of the time I lose is because I should have mulliganed and like down to 6, and I just hate mulliganing to 6. So maybe it's just a small sample size bias on my part, but so I feel like when I'm watching other people play, I try to also think like how many times have I lost like this?
Yeah, I mean, it does feel really, really bad when you lose to not mulliganing or mulliganing down to 6 or whatever have you. So you definitely have those experiences in your mind. Anyway,
Yeah, so focusing back on this, I wonder if this is a turn where you get to develop Null Blade. Because you get to take out the Zito cleanly, and
yeah,
dqdawgoo's deck does have 2 Devours, but other than that, it lines up pretty well for you.
pretty good. You might have to trade off like one of these dinos for a rat,
Yeah,
which is a little unfortunate, but
it could be possible that I think you just develop the Waystone Igniter and then wait to
right.
flip your Dino Nest and then play Null Blade afterwards. That way you have a bunch of.
Seems like a better option because I mean it's not like the Zito's going like if you don't attack here, it's not going to come back into the deck or whatever. You're not
Right.
gonna
The
matter
option's
that.
there for you later, yeah.
Yeah. I'm assuming that ThufirHawat isn't gonna do something silly like play this call to hit early.
Okay, so a small punish for Thufir not playing a good card the previous turn, so not being able to play the gift this turn. He's going to play an undepleted, keep the optionality
okay.
of the cards, which is always a tough decision.
So they do go for this. They kind of had to play something, I suppose, right? They would have just used up the power for the turn, so they're gonna go for this turn. Um, this means that likely we're gonna see a loss of that Null Blade, but that should be fine. You're not gonna want to trade off
Yeah,
2 of them for it.
I think it's an interesting play. I think there's also an argument that you can just nothing that
Yeah.
just inscribe and then count on the Dino Nest flipping into gift the next turn, or maybe you can set up a better situation for your null.
Obviously, it depends on a lot, but like one of the things that definitely improves your play is when not to play things, right? That's a you don't always have to spend your power every turn.
Yeah,
I'm guilty of that, right? I am guilty of that, right? Trying to
uh,
spend my power, trying to find this perfect line where you spend the most pound of power, but
yeah. Well, once again, slightly contrarian. I find myself in the other spot where sometimes I just hold my cards for too long, and then by the time I play them, they're not impactful enough.
Right.
There's always an interesting balance, and a lot of it's about knowing your strengths and weaknesses.
So an interesting decision here. You trade like I mean, you're likely to use up a lot of your power over the next 2 turns. Although here, maybe. Hmm.
I I do agree with what you're saying. Like I do think I would block, but I think the plan is just slightly different for DQ.
Yeah. And but they do use up the yeah. Okay, so the call to hit comes down, and you get to see this exhausted
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
play. You get
Oh,
to see it in real
I
time.
believe
There you
you.
go.
I believed you the whole time, Theo. I didn't have any doubt. I just haven't really seen
I
it that often.
honestly, I didn't even realize it until yesterday that was how it happened. I was just watching Spiff or Chips play or something on ladder, and it happened. I was like, oh, that's what happened. Yeah.
So we see the plan a little bit coming to fruition here. So dqdawgoo, for better or for worse, said, I'm not trading off my Rat King because I want to be able to race with my Rat King. And I think a lot of that comes from the Carnosaur in hand, which will gain lifesteal and be like
Yeah.
a real. So if the enemy has more health than you, the
Uh,
Carnosaur has lifesteal.
but of course they don't draw that extra power, and now they kind of have to. Okay, so they don't attack first because they want to know if they can. They have to jump with this 3-2. Okay, so are they? They're technically not dead, right?
Uh, well,
They have to block with the 3-2.
you only address two things, and you're at six with two other things. The rat can't
Block,
block.
block, block. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'm.
It's fine. Well, once again, there's a reason why there's two of us. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Uh,
Also,
so,
we're in the booth. They're in the play. Yeah.
right, part of what's nice about being qualified for Worlds is we don't have to just prove ourselves all the time. Like we can do whatever we want. And no, I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
But yeah, so first game goes to Thufir. A lot of it coming from uh some amount of the power level of the cards, but really just the stumble. So like maybe it comes down to breaking down the math, maybe it comes down to how the deck was constructed or its overall curve. But I know I would have mulliganed down to six, but I know that me like a year ago or 2 years ago would definitely keep. And I think that's like a really interesting decision point that
Yeah.
sometimes it's really hard to do in the moment. So one piece of advice I have for people that are trying to gain some small edges is when you build a deck, just think about the hands and the situations you can be at with your second 7 card hand, because you can enumerate them pretty easily. It's just 2, 3, and 4 power. Each of them happen a third of the time.
Yeah.
To just figure out what you're going to do in advance.
That's why we in the Eternal community kind of have this thing where we have the 25 power plus like power searchers thing, right? We're basically playing for the second hand, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
playing for the second hand like that. If you really wanted to play for the first hand, and I think that the first hand is slightly less powerful, in general than the second hand, because of the 2, 3, 4 power, you could play actual power in your deck, right? You could actually play an additional amount of power. That might not even still be correct, but you could do that and try to maximize the first hand. But I think that in general, maximizing for the second hand is a little better. Especially since you get two swings at that bat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you get the third hand, so to speak, which you never want. Although I have one, I have won quite a few games with one card less. It's not the worst. It depends on exactly the particulars, right, of the
Yeah,
matchup and stuff, right? If like you're against like a combo deck or something like that, you're looking specifically for like exploit. Like you're just gonna do it. You're just gonna go down to 6, right?
right. I actually played a deck in the Throne Open that was like this cool like Xenon unexpected arrival, like lots
I
of
I I
grafter deck.
also played something very similar to that. Yep.
Yeah. So what was interesting about my list was I was playing like a bunch of grafters and like Makar's Quiver with the Auric Interrogator. Um,
right.
to try to like maximize it. And I like premeditated. I'm like, if my second 7 does not have a 2-drop, I am going down to 6 every time because I had like 16 or 22 drops in my deck. And it like helped that I knew that going into the tournament instead of trying to figure out real time. So a very removal heavy hand from dqdawgoo. How do you interpret or like suss out these hands?
Well, this hand has a Devour, no units. So it's basically a 6-card hand automatically.
Well, until you draw.
ThufirHawat is a little faster.
Hmm.
I don't want to use the term being on the beatdown, but
Sorry.
they're kind of a little faster, so that means that the 2 Shrivels are going to be pretty good in this matchup, right?
Right. So like factoring in ThufirHawat's decision to play Lurking Brute, you have to keep them honest by keeping hands with Shrivel and like hoping that's good enough.
Yeah. So in this case, ThufirHawat has the has the answer to the Dino Nest, whereas dqdawgoo does not.
Yeah,
Currently.
I do agree. Based on deck list, I would anticipate Thufir being the pace setter more often than dqdawgoo.
Right. So yeah, I thought so this blocks really well on this board. Of course, well, can't play the Null Blade just yet, but eventually that'll deal with the 3/4. Probably play the Racking this turn or something like that.
Right. So one thing I think the reason why you see the pause from Thufir is A, do you actually want to inscribe the all the hit? And you probably do because you're going up to gift, but you also like one thing that I actually like doing, and one thing I feel like Thufir does very well from having watched him play it a lot is that he kind of thinks through all iterations of the turn, then you just see all the plays happen at once. Like this decision was like it wasn't, oh, I played Rat King, now I'm gonna think for a bit, now I'm gonna sack. It's like, no, I'm gonna make all my decisions up like in my head and then just execute them at once, which I really like.
I also like that from other people, but I definitely do not do that. Like I wish I could do that a little bit better, because what happens with me is that, like, I mean, sometimes I'll make a decision and like realize like halfway through, right? It's like, okay, now I have to do this. Now I have to do this, right? Which is not in general the way you want to play, but
Well, one thing I do like about you admitting that to the broadcast and stuff, like you're on like weaknesses and stuff, is that like we all have weaknesses. We all like, despite you being the world champion, me being future 2-time worlds competitor, like we all have weaknesses that we're trying to improve and that we understand. But in the tournament itself, it's like, okay, like I just got to do what works for me, and a lot of
yeah.
collaborating, talking to people, even in some ways learning and trying to emulate some people can also help in terms of helping your overall game.
One thing, and is something that I learned. We'll go. I'll talk to you after this.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
that,
So,
right?
so we actually see the full like 2-turn thing that Thufir was thinking of, though.
Exactly.
It's that I'm going very wide. You have no board clears in your deck, and it seems like you kept a clunker. Like your hand isn't really doing that much. So by playing Rat King here, I don't actually have to play
You
my Null
shrunk
Blade,
it.
and I make it so that way future power that I draw is also good. So that whole Rat King sequence with the sacrificing the rat, then called a hit here, that was all scripted by Thufir. Really awesome.
Yeah, for sure. The being able to kill the 2/3 the following turn with the Rat King sacrifice was pretty heads up, pretty heads up play.
Oh yeah, let's get in the chat.
That's a
Uh,
drink to that. Yeah.
so the big decision here is: do you want to display? Do you want to play a shrivel? You are starting to fall behind, but it is true that if Thufir starts running out of removal, that your Krogar can be a decent roadblock and gains you some life. So a lot of decisions here. Like maybe you just shoot off the shrivel plus call the hit. Well, what would you do here?
I think I would fire off the 2 spells, but
Mhm.
it's not something I really would like to do. It's just I think that that might be the play that has to happen. Like being able to take out like the display has so the display can't kill something now, right? Which is unfortunate, but your play for next turn is definitely going to be this 5/5, right?
Yeah.
So I think you kind of have to double spell.
Yeah, so we see the call to hit hitting one of the dinos, and that's
Yeah.
because the dinosaur nest flip into the sheltered valley next.
Notably, the fact that Duffer like made that play with the call to hit means that he didn't inscribe it. So of course he has a couple of cards in hand that he can't cast right now. He'll probably be able to cast it like in the next 2 or 3 turns, but that was a risk that they took for sure with
Yeah,
that
I
play.
like it though because both power and non-power is good for you. Like depleted power is the worst for you, but like
Yeah.
that's not even true because it could just be like it would have to be the seat, and then you can still play Noble Blade. So just your next turn always does something. Okay, usually always does something.
Yeah. And then this happened. Kind of have to stall this out. They could make this attack though with the everything but the 1/1, and I think you probably just attack A space anyway, right? They're just gonna block one of the
Yeah,
other ones. So
I'm pretty sure I jam, but if you jam, you also like the question is do you attack with the rat? That's the hard part. Because all the other
yeah,
ones trade with the face up hit and garrote, but the
I
rat
liked
doesn't.
attacking with the rat too.
I don't know. You got the same outcome here, but you got to keep a rat, so
True,
it's
but I was thinking dqdawgoo was gonna block there.
it's tough. Like
Yeah,
there's a lot of edges to be gained there. Like that one rat looks inconsequential, but like when you're trying to alpha every turn, like a space, it's actually
yeah,
very important.
and it could also be used to sacrifice to a future rat king, for example.
Sure,
Like
sure.
that could happen. No other sacrifice outlets in the deck though, so
Yeah, a little bit light on that one, but just once again, the ability to just like a space every turn. Like here, the extra rat is going to be able to deal a lot more damage. And to that point, like knowing that maybe your play's right that like if you were DQ Doggo, you would have expected a block. Maybe the block should have happened, but it's hard. Like how much are you going to play into what your opponent wants you to do?
so once again, so ThufirHawat does draw play this turn. Not super fantastic, although he can set it up here where Garrote can attack like probably multiple times. Like
Well,
what happens if Dqdawgoo
that's
attacks at the 5/5 here? They can't really.
well,
Um,
yeah, like the because of the overwhelm on the Krogar, you can't attack with the Garrote multiple times.
yeah.
But yeah, kind of just like some unfortunate draws, and like it's hard to say. Like you can end up with some hindsight bias here, saying like I guess I should have inscribed the call to hit,
Right. Oh,
but it's like
jeez, punished.
you don't know your next 3 draws are going to be display hitting Garrote, and then like your deck's like about a third power, so on average you would have expected to see, and you have other inscribed cards. I definitely understand how we got here.
Yep.
I think I would have done the same. So it's but definitely in DQ Doggo's favor. It seems like it's their game to lose at this point.
And another another bad or draw that not good.
Just some salt on the in the wound, really.
Yeah. Um.
So, and just like that, looks like we're going to game 3.
Okay. So obviously that decision came back to haunt him, I suppose. But I you know you can't
Yeah,
expect to draw 5 non-power in a row,
right.
especially when you have yeah.
Like
That's a little ridiculous, right?
yeah, and even in like the post like analysis, like I know in our team chat we're probably going to talk about it. It's like, okay, sure, that's what happened, like that was the result, but was it the right play? Like with everything we knew at the time, if we could go back, would we make the decision the same?
And I think so. Well, I mean, I don't think I would have made that play. I think I would have inscribed the call to hit. But I was also not really thinking about the 2 turn like that definitely put way more pressure on the board. If the at some point the at some point the power was drawn, like
Yeah.
that game was very very favored for Thufir, right?
I know, like I think I'm like 60% to inscribe, or sorry, to not inscribe, but I actually would have just stared at the deck list for a long time. Like I would have really just thought like, okay, what is actually in my opponent's hand with how the game played out? Like what do I want the turn to look like? And is this like a risk
Right.
that I should be willing to take? All right, we're
All
getting to see
right,
some lurking brute
back.
action. Let's go.
That's right. On the play too.
Yeah, it's right where we want it.
All right. So just goes ahead and plays it straight away for the power,
Hmm.
for the influence. Oh, the Super gets a Dynamos off time. I guess that trumps all, right?
Yeah, well, that's your rule of thumb, right?
That, that was my rule of thumb. You know, oh, another Dynamos off the top. What is this? Is this Worlds?
I feel like I've seen this movie before.
All right. I think we get to see a Grumbo into yeah. I think we're just gonna sacrifice that Dino.
Yeah,
Oh,
so right, so
okay.
we're seeing call the hit and then maybe into display killing the dinosaur.
The Dynamos, they have to sacrifice a relic, yeah.
Oh
I think
wow, imagine if these were killer ones. Okay, null blade. I think I actually do like blade. So if you look, the only way this null blade is bad is if they play Hidden Garrote next. I guess they
wait.
could play Sahin also, because Sahin kills it either way.
I mean,
Hmm.
the
I take
Noble, yeah.
I take it back. With Sahin, I don't think I love this as much, but like Sahins exist.
See what dqdawgoo was going for with the playing the Grumbo that turn. They were
Hmm.
looking to get it back. Um, if they killed it, still kind of liked the Heat's Faithful that turn. I'm not gonna lie, because it kind of like trumps whatever they're doing, even if it's like bad into like some sort of type of removal. But
What do you do here? It's pretty tough with the null blade. Like
yeah, you can't play Vikram here. It's just a no go.
like
Probably the
maybe.
same play as it was last turn, the Grumbo into sacrifice, but
I mean, do you even just not sacrifice then because of the
that's
null blade?
true. It just does put the Grumbo into this. Oh yeah, I guess it would still.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I feel like having 1-1-2-2 better than having 4-4, but
Dismantle off the top for Thufir. That's a pretty good draw as
I,
well.
I think the reason why dqdawgoo did this is because the null blade could have just killed the one, and then you got like nothing for your trouble. So maybe if you're setting up future like through the unknown.
Yeah. Um. So of course they can Thufir can kill the nest, play a lurking brute, um, and game based upon that because the next turn I think they're getting their their first sheltered valley.
Hmm.
But of course, Thufir thinking through. This is one of those situations where you're like, 90% to win or something like that, and you're thinking about the ways you could lose, right? From
Yeah,
this spot.
I'm pretty sure what Thufir's thought is how often do I want to play a 5 drop that I draw? Or like can I just win with this board if I get flooded on 5s?
Yeah.
Or like can I just beat this Dino Nest in a very organic fashion and just like make all my 5s that much?
I think he would have probably beaten naturally as well, but like one of the ways that he loses is that Dino Nest lives, right?
Hmm.
Um, the army in a can, so to speak. Even though he has bigger army in the can, they can maybe Dikadaga sets up a situation where they trade or something in the future. A couple of them trade, and then
So do you like jamming it
anyway.
with your 3-3s this turn or try waiting their 5-5s?
Um,
Like, is it a win for you to get the Grumbo off the table, or do you think you could just be bigger?
I think you just jam. Trading with the Grumbo is completely reasonable. It's only trading with one of them. The rest of them are still well.
You also deal more damage over time if you space this.
Yeah.
We're probably just gonna see the Krogar here, because or Krogar is just a 5/5 though, right? So that ends up trading with the Dino.
Yeah. And you can steal one of the dinos, but even then
It becomes a 1/1.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, but an exhaust, and that means you probably still have to chump with the. I haven't done the math, but yeah, you still have to chump with the 2/3. I think the Krogar is the only play
yeah.
here, and it's just not great. You could make them sacrifice a nest,
Right.
right?
If you got to choose, it might be slightly. It's kind of similar, but it might have been an option. But
I think
it's
Krogar is the only option here. You have to trade with the 5/5 and gain the health, and I still think it's lethal.
and you have like a blocker for the brute, so the brute might have to stay home. That's not even true. Them all being 5/5 still.
Oh, they also all pretty much have overwhelm.
Yeah.
Pretty funny.
Would you say this is an overwhelming advantage?
I'm not gonna acknowledge that.
And that's when this was my last round of commentary. So no, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So dqdawgoo, just thinking like, do I have any outs? Like, if it's really that bad, do I just have to display? And are there any 2-drops that get me out of it? Like looking for another card. Like maybe if not all of them had overwhelm, maybe you could like waste an igniter. But ultimately choose the Krogar play, which seems like if something was going to get you out of the spot, it was going to be.
Yeah. Now, I mean, Doggo does not have a sweeper in their deck, so it's gonna be a little tough regardless.
Oh, lurking brute, let's go!
But cheering on from the sidelines. Got two of them going.
Oh,
It was obviously the lurking.
It's gonna
brute,
connect
but
here.
yeah, it is true.
It's gonna grow up.
So block and then that's 25 damage. That's unfortunately that cannot happen. But
Well, the alternative is to take 3 less damage.
Yeah. The alternative is to not die but still die. Pretty much.
And there you have it. So Xenon wins in an unlikely event against Xenon. But I like that we're seeing all these different like choices and selections of cards. Like, oh, I'm choosing Grumbo, I'm choosing Lurking. How much do you want to lean on like different themes? I do think is TH the only one playing like the sort of like Xenon Minotaurs? Because I feel like it's normally Argenport Minotaurs because of Black Book.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about playing like sort of like a slightly Minotaur favored deck because of the gift, but I really wanted to play Witching Hour. Okay, so that was the end of the round. That was our first and last match of the round, and yeah, we'll move to round 4 in a few minutes there. See you guys, guys.